So I did this training with the author of that book, Your Soul Contract Decoded. And in there, each of us, so they picked certain people who had numbers so that they would, talk with you about those numbers and how you experience life. And that the other participants in the training would then, learn from that interaction. And so he talked to me about my nines because I have four nines in my chart, in my soul contract chart. And in there, it's like I wasn't really paying much attention to my nines. I figured there was other, fires to put out in my soul contract chart. I just thought my nines were, they gave me power. Obviously, that's all about power. It's the most powerful number. I just thought it gave me power, and I do have it in a spiritual karma area. And so I thought, okay, well, I just need to do some more work on connecting to that spiritual side of me or connecting to the spiritual realms. So I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. But then he started talking with me and he asked me about my childhood. And I said, well, I don't really remember a lot of my childhood. I have bits and pieces, not really full memories or none at all. I couldn't tell you what I did in fifth grade. I have no idea. So he said, okay, so you have some healing to do. And the way that he said to do that is because it's all in my nervous system, which I guess, I knew, I just didn't know exactly what to do about it, what specific to do about it. I'm sure I've tried things over the years to try to do this, but at some point I'm like, well, if I don't remember, I don't remember. But I do know that things happened, like abuse wise, because I do have, I think I've mentioned this before. If you're watching a movie and you just pull out a frame, that's what I have. So I know that something happened. So I have, because I have a couple of these frames, I just don't remember the whole thing. So it's kind of hard to heal something you don't really remember. You can't remember the sensations. You can't, although the one I do remember, it was just like unbelievable shame. So that I guess, but I don't remember anything that happened to my body per se. I just remember that it was the aftermath of this and I felt super shameful. So I didn't really know what to do with that. It's like, well, if I can't remember, I can't remember. But my body remembers. Obviously, there's a lot of books out there about that your body remembers everything and it's all stored in there. And so he said, you need to work on your nervous system. And one of the ways, so if you have a nine, or if you have a 10-1, or a 1-1, or a five, I think those numbers definitely, there was some sort of abuse that happened when you were younger, and you need some healing for that. And especially if you have trouble with your memories, you're going to need somatic healing, like healing that the body can heal from, because your body, like I said, remembers everything. And you need to get that out and let your body heal from it. So, one of the things that he told me to do is get a C1 vertebrae adjustment. And it's also called an atlas adjustment because I guess the another name for this, it's your first vertebrae right here, is the atlas. And it works closely with your vagus nerve. So it just is that kind of like, the way I look at it, it's kind of like a gatekeeper, right? Between your, lower brain things that do things unconsciously and your body. And so that's the first thing he said is go get a C1 atlas, vertebrae adjustment. So I have an appointment to do that. I'll let you guys know how that works. But of course, I can't get in right away, so I'm gonna go to the YouTube and see if I can find something on that, how to adjust like a C1 vertebrae on your own. And so I did find some things, and mostly they're just two exercises, but one says hold it for 30 seconds, the other one says hold it for 2 minutes. So I hold it for 2 minutes. But I have done this, and the thing is that as soon as he told me this, it was during this class, and the class was 5 days long, but you got a day in there as a break, so total 6 days. But It was my time. It started at 11 o'clock at night and didn't end till 7 in the morning. So I was already having so much trouble. And one of the things I was having trouble with, that I always have trouble with, is my digestion, right? It was so out of whack because here I was drinking coffee at 11, 4 or 5 in the morning to try to stay awake. And it was really super confused and having a lot of trouble. So I wasn't, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I didn't know what my body was going to do if I'm working on the C1 vertebrae. And I do the exercises. This is like, day, I don't know, 2 or something. So I did these little exercises, I think maybe even in the middle of the night when we got a break, I did them. And again, not having any idea of what it was going to do, all of a sudden I'm noticing my digestion, my stomach has done like a 180. It's like, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to be overactive and making your life miserable. I'm good. So I thought, isn't that interesting? Which makes sense because your vagus nerve and everything, and your gut is your second brain. And so yeah, I thought, how fascinating. So honestly, I can't wait to get like a professional adjustment on this. But yeah, it has helped, and I've done this ever since. And my digestion is so much better than it used to be because, like I said, it was something that was really bothering me. And I was very relieved about that. So yeah, my body is screaming at me in a lot of different ways. Mentally, emotionally, physically, has been screaming at me for years. I've got this overactive inflammation with the pericarditis. I've had to have heart surgery. Like, I've had so many, my body has been through the ringer. And now I'm kind of thinking, well, yeah, because I never let it release any of this stuff. I didn't let it release anything. And so all of this negativity is stored up in there, and it needs to come out some way, and it's going to come out some way negative, right? So another thing that the instructor told me to get is this book, um, Peter Levine, An Unspoken Voice. Whoops, I always turn it the wrong way. And so in there, he talks about shaking. Like, that's your body's kind of way. And I just went to the somatic healer too, and they both said the same thing. Like, animals do it when an animal has like a traumatic experience. It gets up and it like literally shakes it off, right? And then it's good and it goes about its day. And so our bodies, when something happens that's really traumatic like that, and you're not able to get that release, you're not able to release that negativity, it gets just stored up in there. And one way that it can come out is through shaking. So, as I mentioned, I also am going to this somatic healing practitioner, and I've only been to one session so far. So that's another thing that he suggested for people with these numbers to do. Remember, it's the 9s, 10 ones, 1 ones, or 5s, anywhere in your chart. So in this, and I've never been to one of those before, any sort of somatic healing or anything, but what he also talked about the shaking, and how we did this was he had me do like some things that would get my legs tired out a little bit. And then I laid on this table, and your body has to be put in a way that it's going to feel vulnerable, right? But again, your brain knows you're safe. It's just that your body doesn't know yet. And so the way that you're going to safely let your body experience this shaking, by like, that's the shaking part, is the releasing of all this. And so he had me in different positions, which would then, to my body would be like a vulnerable place, yet I'm totally safe. And so it was able to, like, it started shaking like crazy. And that's one of the ways that he also talked about, this practitioner talked about bracing. And so he said, yeah, a lot of times people go and get massages and things like on their body to free things up. And it might work for a little while, but your body is still like bracing because it's never gotten rid of that negativity that is built up in there. So it's just always bracing. So that's one thing that this does too, is it helps get rid of that bracing and you can just release the stuff. So, and then we did like some breath work in there, and oh my gosh, I felt like, I don't know. It was the weirdest feeling. There was sensations coming up that I had never felt before. He said you might get some memories back. I haven't. But he said, even if you don't, your body is still being able to release this. And so that's another thing, that if you have this number, you really need to start working on your body and what it needs to like release this negativity. So again, if you have a 9, a 5, a 10 1, or a 1 anywhere in your chart, and especially if you don't remember, your body remembers everything. And so these are the things that you can start to work on. And I'm going to keep doing this and like report back to you guys, but if you do these things or if you have done these things, let me know, and let me know how they have worked for you.